So, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and let people in and we'll talk just a little bit. It's not quite 6 yet. Here we go. Hi, Tamara, you made it home. Good for you. Hi, Lila.
Hi, Lila.
Hi, Lila. Hi, Bizarries.
Okay. Yeah, so welcome everybody to our first Farmers Edition of Feasting in the Foothills. And I'm gonna just ask that you keep yourself muted unless you wanna say something and then pop right on. We are so excited to start this today with, actually, hey, Justin, could you get rid of the, you might have just done it. Get rid of the, I'm gonna get rid of the waiting room so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, perfect. So people can join us as they come on. Hey, Ryan. Ryan looks like he also had too much sun today. It was a tough one. A farmer's life, right, you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Tori, I'm gonna make you guys a co-host. So you can spotlight people if you wanna ask questions, and I think we're good. So the idea of this is just really kind of give us all an inside look at what our farmers do. And we know they all work hard, but I was so impressed with what these guys have done and how much you've learned in such a short amount of time. It's really amazing. So we're gonna have a little, Justin Allen went out to the farm with us and he took this really cool video and then spliced it into little clips about different conversations we had. So we're gonna take a look at that. It's just about 10 minutes, but it's give you an idea, and then we'll come back together, and I'm just gonna share the video on my screen, and then we can come back all together and watch. We're gonna talk to Justin about pairing and using these great vegetables in his cooking, and then open it up for questions for Tori and Dan. So welcome all, and bear with me while I'm kind of out of practice. I haven't done a Zoom meeting now for a month, and so give me a moment to get this all loaded up and ready to go. Okay.
Nice. We went out to a farm in Sonoma County, Singing Frogs Farm, and we took like this course with them. And they're kind of like renowned for their no-till methods and what it's done for their crop production. And so we didn't intend to be transformed, but we were totally convinced after that.
Was it a weekend or
One day.
One day, yeah.
Oh,
One day. And we were like,
showed us around and showed us the way they do things, and yeah, we were convinced. So.
it was pretty cool. And it just felt like all those like pieces were kind of falling into the right places, because it was farming had always felt like such an abstract concept to us. We were just like faking it till we were making it kind of thing. Like we were trying so hard and just like
talking about that.
yeah, scrambling, trying to figure it out, and just seeing how other farmers do it, and then so many light bulbs. Like Dan and I, the whole workshop, we would like look at each other and be like, "Did you hear that?" It's so easy. Like just certain things that they make easier on themselves. Yeah, it's kind of just like what we have time for and what we have prepared outside, you know, like bed space and what crops are coming out.
What chart does this take to figure out?
It's mostly mental.
Okay.
Kind of, yeah.
It like changes
now?
so much, you know,
Yeah.
so it's like being able to figure it out all the time.
Okay. Yeah, because you can't actually.
No, we tried that in the beginning. We had a crop plan and things had very specific locations, and nothing worked.
Okay.
It's like we have to like everything has a schedule, but it's always just the week of figuring out how it's going to work.
Because you got to be careful with crop rotation, right?
Yeah.
Some things.
Yeah, a little bit. We're not too concerned about it.
Okay.
Things just like change so fast on the farm that there really isn't like much likelihood that we would rip out cucumbers and then have cucumbers go into that same bed.
Okay.
There's just like so many moving parts that it's usually pretty easy to find a different location for the same crop.
You don't have to worry about that.
Not really.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, once they're past this stage, they all look the same, like certain varieties, look all the same like this. But then once they get bigger, then we're like, okay, that's definitely dino kale.
Okay.
And then we can find the other dino kales around here somewhere,
Okay.
So,
same stage.
Yeah, because they don't always end up like placed right next to each other. But yeah, and it's just a constant rotation. Like we have these are all overflow.
They're ready to go.
These are seeded. They just haven't germinated yet. But we keep them underneath here, mostly to keep them cool.
Okay.
And obviously because space is a factor. So there's not quite enough room for all of them to be flat right now. So once we get these other things planted next week, then these will come out up on the tables.
So these guys are ready to go.
Yeah.
Are these close to being?
Yeah. Be planted next week.
And those guys too down there?
A lot of stuff in here will be planted next week, yeah.
I guess it's been 2 years that we've pretty much fully transitioned to no-till. Our insect issues, our pest issues are basically like gone.
They have gone way down.
Way down. Like we certainly still deal with pests, bad insects, but right now it's just at this like smooth and steady, like we can expect it, we can anticipate it.
Really cool.
And we don't have to do any crazy measures to like get rid of a bug that's destroying a huge part of the farm. Because the whole biological activity of the farm is working with itself.
It's more consistent.
It's more consistent. It's there's a lot of like synergy. So we have these little black beetles that are super beneficial that we never saw before because we were tilling up their little eggs in the soil. So they weren't forming their whole beetle life cycle. And those guys eat all of our, what do they eat?
So cucumber beetles were a huge issue for us before. They would just swarm the farm. I mean, it was like
everywhere.
Crazy.
And they're awful.
And so this was a point that Singing Frog farmers made. The beetle that eats the larvae of those cucumber beetles gets destroyed when you rototill, and you basically decimate their population. So then there's no control on the cucumber beetle naturally. So within 1 year of not disking the soil, we've seen a dramatic decrease in cucumber beetles.
So much less work.
So much less work and less stress, It's just like, it's really cool to see how all these different aspects of the farm are working with each other now with less work on us. It's like, that's the whole goal, right? You want to just like work smarter, not harder. And let your farm work with you. And that's like what we're doing now. It all feels so much more natural than it did before.
After 3 years?
This is our second year of fully transitioning to no tilling whatsoever.
This is our 4th year of farming.
Yeah.
We had a trial year in West Point. That's where we started with a small garden in West Point, and that didn't work out so good. We moved down here, and it's been a lot better. But then the learning curve is
very steep.
It's not like we moved here and everything was glorious.
No.
We have just had more opportunity.
And the idea is that we'll just get like a bigger, more productive yield, and the fruit size of the cherry tomatoes stays consistently like pretty nice and big. Whereas our outside tomatoes, we just let them go crazy, and so eventually we will get like pretty small cherry tomatoes that might not be like what the customer necessarily wants. But I think the more we do this method, I think we'll like it more. I love our outside tomatoes because of that craziness factor. But these are still, it's good fruits that we, and it's fun. It's been fun to do this. Dan has been in here a lot up on a step stool now. He was talking about getting stilts.
So we can just walk along and maintain it.
So we've yet to invest in stilts, but that might be next year's thing. I don't really see much of this type of farming anything bigger than like 5 acres, just because that's when it gets not as feasible.
Right. You gotta use machinery.
You gotta use machinery when it gets to that amount of acreage, whereas like the sweet spot is, you know, 1 acre to 5, I would say, for this style farming. And you just have, you know, very little overhead with like not operating too many machines, a smaller crew.
And the efficiency, like we plant so much on this 1 acre that you can't do with a tractor. You know, we plant beets next to our tomatoes, and like there's no wasted space.
No.
So there's no room for tractor tires and turnarounds and stuff like
How many families are you feeding? Is it like 75?
Yeah, so our CSA program feeds about 70 right now, but we'll probably bump it up to more like 100 in the fall when we don't have the farmers market.
Okay.
And then the farmers market, we see like 400 to 500 customers a weekend. So. This year we did more heirloom tomatoes. Yeah. They were just, last year we did a lot more of the red beefsteaks, and they were beautiful, but everybody's always asking about the heirlooms. And so we kind of flip-flopped, and yeah. But we don't do too many, because we also found that too much diversity just like kind of confuses the customer.
Okay.
They don't know what
Too many options.
Yeah.
many options. So we have like 3 heirloom varieties we grow. Brandywine, like a Cherokee purple, and then an orange tomato. And then we have our beefsteaks and our cherry tomatoes.
And it's kind of nice because on
It's
the
enough variety that nobody's going to get tired of them.
You get the colors, you get the different kinds, and everybody's happy.
But yeah, we're happy with the varieties that we have now, but it's so funny because every winter we go through our seed catalogs, and it's hard not to buy like every variety of tomato that there ever is. There's so much, and they all look so good. So we have to rein it in and just like choose, you know, okay, we can choose 5 this year. 5 varieties. Our standards now, we're such like perfectionists, which is a blessing and a curse, but like we really don't want to bring anything to the market that is like subpar for our own personal standards. We're talking about interplanting, where we can plant multiple crops in the same bed to save space. And so this was pretty interesting timing because the tomatoes obviously grew really fast.
Oh, whoa.
But we have beets in here too. Yeah, we start down here, you know, when the plants are really young.
Okay.
And
then they take off.
yeah, and so we wear this little satchel, actually, the one right there. We wear it on our belt, and it has string coming out the top. We tie it, and then it's really easy. We just like walk down with the string and then get to the next T-post and whip it around, and then just like a really tight cinching motion, and the whole tomato comes up. And then you work your way back down the other side.
Oh, wow.
So that's been really cool, and we've taught our employees how to do that. It's like a pretty fun task. We're really grateful to have like found this piece of property to lease. It's just really ideal soil and water situation, but super high pressure. So we've had like a break in our PVC line a couple times, and it's like a 200-foot geyser that just shoots straight up into the air. It's a lot of pressure.
Out here,
Lakes.
At one point, our main line broke, and basically the whole farm was flooded.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's always like a high point of anxiety for us. Whenever we like go on a camping trip, we're like, please don't break, please don't break. No water issues.
Yeah, we replaced the entire main line all the way down the property to the next.
Okay.
Because it was shattered, you know, it was like 40 years old.
Yeah, we feel pretty confident in it.
Okay.
But it's really great water, and it's really inexpensive, so it's kind of all we could ask for.
And it comes pressurized.
Yeah, it comes pressurized.
Gravity
Totally.
fed,
Yeah. Not potable though,
It is
so
only ag water, yeah.
it's only ag water.
So we need water deliveries for all of our processing.
Okay.
Which we have a big tank up front for.
Okay.
Yep. So we just wash our produce in really good, clean water before we take it to the customer.
So there you go. Tori and Dan, you feel like that gave you, people get a sense of what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we got a fair shake on that.
Okay, great. Before we turn it over to Tori and Dan, I'd like Justin to tell us about the pairing he did.
Okay.
The idea is each week he's going to have a dish that locals can pick up at his takeout on Wednesdays nights behind the tasty room here. And if you're afar, we will send you the recipe. So tonight was tomato marmalade and eggplant caviar to go with our Barbera. So tell us about it.
So tomato marmalade, tomato jam, just like it sounds. It's simple and delicious. It's a great way for us, like everyone, to use our tomatoes right now. I don't really care for canning tomatoes. I feel like it's a lot of work. And this is something I find super simple and that I can make and last. And you can put it in a jar if you wanted to and can it. I've done that before and it comes out great. So we made tomato jam, that's one. And I used cherry tomatoes for this. And I find that the cherry tomatoes are a little more intense in flavor. And when we use them for something like jam, they don't have such water content as larger tomatoes, so they don't take as long to thicken up. So this is super simple to make. And I sent out the recipe for everyone. And of course, I didn't use a recipe to make it, but I used all the ingredients in that recipe. And so what I did was I added half a flat, which is 6 baskets or maybe 7, into a pot. And then cinnamon, I just used 1 whole stick of this African cinnamon that I have, super fragrant. Put that in, dumped sugar until I thought it was just about enough. And I ended up adding some more. And then
Never enough sugar.
no, usually, I mean, there's an edge. It's like quick. And then red pepper flake, and just reduced it down, added to a little bit of pectin in there as well to kind of congeal everything together. And I really like it's not too jelly-like. It spreads really easy. You get tomato all in the front, and on the end, on the very finish, you get this like cinnamon spice, like cinnamon aromatic kind of that comes up into your nose, and then the spice down the back, and it's not overpowering at all. I source a lot of vegetables from Tori Dan, and so the cherry tomatoes are just perfect to use right now. Another thing for cherry tomatoes that I've been doing is tomato paste. It's something super simple. I just take the stems off, then I'll put them on a sheet pan and roast them at like 250 to 300 until the edge turns black. And then I'll puree all of that, and then I have tomato paste. And I've used that in a lot of things. I tried to do the same thing with larger tomatoes, and I feel like like I said earlier, they're too watery. And so I'm just gonna have to do it for longer when the cherry tomatoes are gonna have the more intense flavor. And I mean, realistically, I think when at home, if you have a cherry tomato plant, you're gonna end up with more cherry tomatoes, and it's just such a simple thing to do. And so I make tomato paste probably once every two weeks. And it's something that in the fridge, it just lasts, especially if you just top it with a little olive oil. It's not going to go bad very quickly. Just kind of flatten the top, put a little olive oil on it, and it'll stay pretty good.
Seal the deal.
Seal it. Yeah, the second thing is called eggplant caviar, which is a play on baba ganoush. Baba ganoush is roasted eggplant, hopefully over some kind of grill or charcoal. And then you mix it with a little bit of tahini and garlic, which tahini is sesame seed. And it's the same thing, same concept as that, as a dip, but instead of using tahini, I used a bunch of herbs. And so that morning I went out to pick up my produce. What is it? On Tuesday morning, I went to pick up my produce, and we were talking about this eggplant caviar, and I was just walking through the tomato plants we just saw, and there's fennel that just, it's like volunteer fennel. And Dan said I could take it. So I asked for a knife, chopped it up, took it back, and it was perfect because I used their basil, I used their fennel. I had some garlic confit that's been in the fridge that just lasts forever, and I use that as well. And so it's super herbaceous. It's something easy to scoop onto a cracker or put on a sandwich or just a simple sauce. And so what I do to make that is take their eggplant and put it on top of a grill. You could do a charcoal, wood. I just have the gas propane grill at the kitchen. And so I get it cranking hot, and then I turn it to about a medium heat, and I'll grill it on 2 or 3 sides pretty low, and then just turn the heat off and let it sit on there and let it steam itself all the way through. And if you can't get that steam action, you can just put it into the oven, and you can get the same action for probably like 15, 20 minutes. And it just kind of collapses on itself. When you touch it, it should be soft. And then at that point, you scoop it out, and you can either chop it up and mix it. You can put it in a robo coupe if you want a more finer texture. And I thought these two items were just a great like capture of what Tori and Dan do right now, and what I have been loving buying these last couple weeks. Tomatoes constantly, and then I've been on this eggplant kick with them for like the last 2-3 weeks, and I'm gonna do eggplant again next week for a couple menu items.
It's just so good though. Like, it's so delicious.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like baba ganoush over a cracker on a hot afternoon?
Yeah. So we offered baba ganoush the last 2 weeks, and we're probably not going to offer it next week, but we're going to do 2 other things with eggplant. We'll do our lasagna will come back, and instead of meat, I'm going to do the roasted eggplant, the same thing to add that smoky flavor, and then we'll also see tomatoes on something else next week. I don't know what yet.
Before we let him off the hook, Anne, let's have him hybrid switch to the Somm part. So why would you pair all of those items with this Barbera 13?
For the tomato jam, it's acid forward and then stewed cooked tomatoes. And I get these really pretty, bright fruit from the Barbera. And also it hits you with that like refreshing acidity. And so tomatoes, Barbera, they're a key hook. You can also go to Tempranillo, but it doesn't have the fat or sugar content that I think to balance the Tempranillo. And then for the eggplant, the roasted flavor I thought it would be a really nice complement to those really pretty fruits. It has a kind of meaty quality that a meatball has. And so I felt like Barbera was a better pairing, especially with those green notes of the eggplant caviar, like the fennel and the basil. There's a freshness to the Barbera that I thought it would connect to.
Yeah. There's something about, if you all have the farmer's pack, there's something about the tomato jam just on like the cracker that, like the cinnamon that comes out in this and then raises the spice level here. It's like, ooh, we're married. Happily.
Yeah. The cinnamon really connects to the oak, this like minor oak notice on the Barbera. But Tori Dan, thank you so much for, all the good produce consistently, and for dealing with my 9, 10, 11 p.m. the night before orders and having them ready when I get there at 9. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for always being
That's
willing
a public confession.
Yeah. Justin's always willing to take a late delivery too. If we're like, oh, we don't have it ready for you, we'll deliver it to Yorba at 7 a.m. tomorrow. And he's like,
It's a pretty good network we have, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's good to have friends.
Okay, so who's got some questions for Tori and Dan? Tamara.
Hey there, you guys. Actually, I have a question for Justin.
Okay.
So, Justin, when you're doing things like tomato jam and stuff like that, do you have a better alternative for just plain white sugar?
You don't want to use sugar, or?
Well, I'm trying to reduce sugar, and I tend to want to go a little bit more natural. But I've also not had much success with things like monk fruit and agave. And I mean, honey is a good alternative, but it does not give the same sweetness nor the same caramelization as a regular white sugar would. Yeah. So I'm just wondering if you have some other secret thing.
I don't. I love to play around with the different like sweetness profiles of like sweet, and so that's honey, brown sugar, and white sugar in my kitchen. Honey has these caramely notes. Brown sugar has that dark caramel notes, and then white sugar is just super clean. And for this, I really wanted, tomato forward. But what you could do is use more tomatoes in this, and you can't expect the same sweetness, but by adding more tomatoes, you're going to get, and reducing it a little longer, reducing your water content will add bump up your sweetness in the tomato jam. But I'm not a fan, I'm sorry, of really striving hard for like alternative sugars.
And for me, I've noticed that if I roast my fruits and vegetables a little bit longer, they get that caramelization that I'm looking for without having to add a whole lot more. So
I would consider adding other flavor profiles. So instead of replacing the sweetness of sugar, you can add it with a different profile, like caramelized fennel, which will add a little bit of sweetness from the caramelization, but then add a different flavor to that. And so then you're not missing the sugar.
thank you. I appreciate that.
I remember you saying that 5 acres is like almost too much for the farm you're trying to achieve. How big is your farm?
The land we currently grow on is about 1.5 acres. We have some little outbuilding type structures, but we grow about 1.5 acres of crops, and it supplies everything we need for the moment. We're looking to grow in the future, of course, but for now, that's supplying all of our needs.
We've figured like eventually we would potentially need at the most 5 acres, just with how like efficient and productive we've found our farm to be on such a small acreage, with a small crew, a small like group of teammates that helps us. Any more than 5 acres, that would just require a lot more crewmates, a lot more structured, and it just would make our overhead a lot bigger. So we're like very low overhead and high profit to make us feel like we're a profitable, like good business.
Yeah, I would say if we're trying to farm more than 5 acres, we need to implement machinery, which changes the whole structure of the farm and the whole production and everything.
And a bigger crew too, which we love having our team, but a small team is good for us for now.
Yeah.
How many people are in your crew?
We have 3 part-time employees. So more hands for less time makes a lot of sense on our farm in the summer because our hours are short. It's so hot in the afternoons. So yeah, we get about 50 to 55 hours of help every week.
Cool.
And we don't ask anybody to stay longer than, at the most, an employee doesn't stay longer than an 8-hour shift in the summertime. We can be there like sweating our butts off into the evening, but we just don't want to ask employees of that just yet. So most of the time their shift is from like 6:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. and then they're done. Just because it makes the day nicer for them.
Yeah. Very cool.
I should take some hints, huh, Justin, Brittany?
Yeah, I think we should take the hint. We're the ones that we don't mind staying out there.
Okay.
And most of us are staying close by, right? So.
Tori and Dan, this is Mary. I have a question for you. I'm in San Diego where the weather's lovely and 79, 80 degrees. But next week, you guys are going to push 100 plus.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do at the farm to either prepare for that or watering or, when a plant here droops, I think, oh gosh, it needs water. But I've learned in watching Ann at the ranch, that's normal response to some heat and the plant's going to rebound. I mean, what are you guys doing like just to start maybe even today to get ready for this or handle this heat?
Yeah, there's certainly precautions we take. We're looking at 105 to 109 for about a week. And it's certainly not easy on the farm or the farmers.
Yeah, you too, Ann.
Yeah, everybody.
I was going to go for that long. Oh, jeez. Ugh.
But there's certain things we do. You know, we pushed off a lot of planting this week. And so we're going to be delayed, but that's just part of it. You know, those plants will stay safe in the greenhouse. And a lot of things we have planted recently that are sensitive, we have shade cover over. We invested a lot of money in these long shade covers that we have. And so we're just a lot more prepared than we have been in the past. We're feeling good. You know, we just planted broccoli a week ago, a lot of broccoli. And if we didn't have this kind of infrastructure, like our shade and insect netting, that crop would, I would say, be a total loss. So over the years, we've kind of saved up this infrastructure, and we have tools now to help mitigate the heat, the extreme heat that comes our way.
I'm curious if you do any other companion planting.
For the most part, for companion planting, we mostly just rely on flowers. I would say just like different flowers that we have around the farm right now. So step it back, like last year, a lot of our business was cut flowers that we would do for like weddings and events and things like that. And since everything has happened with the pandemic, there was such a high demand for vegetables that we really scaled back on flowers. But luckily, we still have so many flowers planted around the farm to bring in those beneficial insects like bees and hoverflies and praying mantises and all the beneficial insects that we want to be there. So we have flowers pretty much all over the farm now, even though we're not necessarily using them for profit. They're there because we truly need them to bring in all of the positive beneficial aspects of insects on the farm. And that's kind of the method that we've used so far with beneficial companion planting and everything. As long as we try to have some sort of flowering plant near the rest of our farm, we try to sit, every couple beds we have some flowering plants, flowers or herbs, and that's definitely helped us a lot.
I have a question for Tori and Dan. I'm not a farmer, but I'm trying to get the picture of the layout. So you said the farm space, the growing space is about 1.5 acres. And then you have all the seedlings and stuff in that greenhouse stacked on top of each other, correct? And then they eventually get moved outside when they're a certain maturity or so and placed in different areas. And as you harvest some, then you put some sort of different type of variety in what's available again. Is that how it works?
Yeah, so the layout of our farm is we grow everything in standardized beds. Every one of our beds is 30 inches wide by 100 feet long. And so that allows us to basically calculate our production based on bed space. So say we'll grow 2 beds of kale or 2 beds of chard, and we know what that means as far as production goes, what we're going to get off of that. And so everything goes into that bed category. So depending on what we're talking about, we might grow 10 beds of tomatoes or 20 beds of peppers or something like that. And it all fits into the farm. It's very standardized. And that's how we organize things.
Are they wood beds or do you put concrete?
No.
Or what
So
do you...
these are all in the ground, established beds.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So you can think of them as above ground, wooden boxes that are 2.5 feet wide by 100 feet long.
I see.
It's very much the same idea because we never rototill the field or anything like that. But it's actually the ground itself.
Do you use all drip irrigation?
No, we use a lot of overhead irrigation. I think that's part of our secret to farming this time of year. We produce beets and carrots and lettuce and things like that year round. And I think the overhead irrigation is key to that. So we spent a lot of money investing in these overhead wobbler sprinklers that really douse our farm and make it nice and
Thank
nice
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for you too. This is Yorba Dave.
Yay!
Hi.
Dave.
Just like the future of farming, and you are now doing like an 1.5 acres. And if you had to pick just like the sweet spot for your style of farming without a lot of heavy equipment, and you said you'd want it to grow. I mean, are you looking at is it 3-4 acres? Is that like what you could do that you could still do with your style of farming and maximize your profits with the, looking at how you're going to have to market your CSAs, how you have to hire a bigger crew, all of that sort of stuff. I mean, as you've been at it for 4 years now, I mean, what would be like your ideal size farm for what you are doing?
Want me to answer that?
Go ahead.
It's kind of it's funny, it's a loaded question because we've
exactly why I asked it.
Totally. So we've been, toying with this question for a while, because do we want to live on our farm and also farm the land? Or do we want to maybe be a little bit disconnected from our full-time career and have a home elsewhere and then farm
like we do now.
Like we do now. So we're living, this is where we live, but we farm elsewhere. I think right now, ideally, the dream for us is to find property that we could purchase that would be 10 to 15 acres, because that would give us a solid 5 to 7 acres of like farmable land, but also just enough not farming land where we can have like kind of some disconnect, because we're so invested with the farm at this point where we knew if we lived on a 2 or 5 acre parcel with our farm and our home, it would be a little crazy.
We would never leave the farm.
We'd never leave the farm. Too much farm all the time. And we've realized over the years that we need to have that disconnect. We need to have a home to go to where we're not just thinking about the farm 24/7. So our ideal, like what we're searching for right now, is just something that is, 10 to 15, 20 acres with at least 5 to 7 acres of like farmable pasture land.
For row crops.
Row crops.
We would love to have chickens and goats and other creatures on our property, fruit trees. For our production we're talking about right now, about 5 acres and then 10 acres of living space would be awesome.
That's the dream.
So
That's the dream.
if you went to 5 to 10 acres, would you then have to use more heavy equipment, or would you be able to still do it the way that you're doing it now?
I think the way we're doing it now would work on 5 acres, and still be profitable. Yeah.
As far as like the 5 to 10 acres go, I think it would just be like a maximum of 5 acres of the exact farming style we're doing now, plus a couple acres of, if we wanted to plant fruit trees or have animals at some point. But row crops, the intensive amount that we're doing now would maximum 5 acres. I think that would be like our goal and the amount that we'd be comfortable with like the business size that we're striving towards.
How often do you switch those beds? I mean, the tomatoes stay in for quite a while, but the other ones, how many times is a piece of one of those 20 by, was it 12 by 100 or 24 by 100?
It's 30 by 100, so
Okay.
2.5 feet
How
by.
often do they get used? How many times over the most?
So we're getting better and better at this, and it used to be, there'd be a month in between when a crop was done and another one would be replanted, but now we're looking at a few days. So we'll harvest a bed of radishes, and within 3 days, we're planting something else, whether it be basil, kale, it could be anything really.
It just has to be planted.
It just has to be planted.
The bed is never empty.
Yeah.
And our employees, I think they're still logged on, but they have been troopers with our bed prep turnaround. So on the to-do list every day, it's like, harvest, yay, all these fun things. And then it's on the bottom of the list. It's like turnover bed A2. And they just do it within like 30 minutes. Any single person can turn over a bed pretty efficiently within a half hour. And
depending on what the crop was.
Yeah, depending on what the crop was. Sometimes it's really easy and we're just taking out old lettuce roots, which is just nothing, we're just taking out old lettuce. Sometimes it's taking out old summer squash, which the plants are like taller than our employees. So it's not as fun, and they do it without ever complaining, and it's the best thing in the world.
We love our employees.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yay!
So I have a question. Is there anything you haven't planted yet that you are aspiring to add to the repertoire?
As far as next year goes, we're a little too late this year, but we're planning on doing a lot more potatoes and onions.
Ooh.
What?
So that's high on the list, and maybe a little bit of corn. It might only be for our CSA customers, but we'll see how much we can produce. So.
Yeah, and then this fall, I mean, every like changing season is so exciting for us because right when we're really tired of the summer stuff, like I know our customers start to get tired of summer squash, cucumbers, basil, tomatoes, right as we're starting to get really tired
No, we don't.
of all those things.
Never tomatoes.
Totally. But we, you know, as the seasons change, like right now in the greenhouse, we're starting all of our seeds for all of fall and winter, actually. So we're starting like broccoli, cabbages, celery, kale, chard, kohlrabi, all of these things that you don't really think about in the summertime. And now we're so excited because we get to start those again. So every like changing season as a farmer, it just like gives you so much hope for the next couple months.
You're always looking 2 months ahead.
Always looking 2 months
what
to
you
like
do now matters 2 months from now.
Yeah.
So it's tricky that way. Yeah.
It's amazing that, I mean, I was just floored by how you constantly keep filling those beds and that you can just figure it out. You got the flow down.
It's not super smooth, but it's a lot less rocky than it used to be.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Hi, Tori and Dan. This is Kelsey from the Tasting Room. I was wondering if you guys could tell us a little bit about your journey just to becoming farmers, like what drew you to that and just how you decided that was going to be your pursuit. Because we forgot to ask you when we were out at the farm, since it was so beautiful, we were just distracted by it.
Our whole draw to farming started when we lived in Chico. That's where we met, and we would go like every Saturday when we got together. We'd go to the Chico Farmers Market, and it was just this really awesome experience that we loved, and we loved buying local fresh produce. And we both were interested in like the natural world and ways we could be outside all the time. I mean, Dan studied biology and I studied psychology, but we worked outside for most of our college careers, teaching science field trips and whatnot, and working in Yosemite. And we just felt like we should probably work outside forever. And yeah, we just felt really drawn to that community surrounding the farmers market. I think that's what really started this whole inspiration of doing our own thing was we saw folks in Chico doing their own thing at the farmers market, producing vegetables, and that was like their main job. And we thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then we bought a book. And then we read the book every night in bed, and we were just so excited about starting a farm someday. I mean, we still have that book in our bookshelf. It's like dog-eared and like all dirty and
very dirty.
We've read that so many times because we had no idea what we were doing, but we knew we wanted to strive towards something that would like make a self-sufficient lifestyle and also support our community. And I think that's how we ended up in this path.
I have a question about the flower side of the growing. What kind of flowers do you grow, and how is that different and or similar to the vegetables and fruits that you grow as well?
So when we started our business, we had intentionally wanted to do like a full-on like 50-50 like veggies and flower business operation. And we did that for a year, about a year and a half. Flowers are great. We love growing flowers so much, but we just had so much to like wrap our heads around that it just became a little overwhelming when we were dealing with brides and their whole scheme of what they wanted for their wedding, which is a little intense.
During heat waves.
And so while we love like doing flowers for all different kinds of events, I think right now we're kind of stepping back from the flower situation. We stepped back really a lot this year, and we're kind of regretting it mostly because we just like having flowers in our house, and like not having that as much is kind of weird for us, which is silly. But We next year, so what we will like be focusing on now is flowers that we can produce like throughout the winter and then have in the early spring. And so that's stuff that we'll be planting in November, and that'll be, you know, snapdragons and ranunculus and anemones. And those will grow really slowly all winter, and then they'll produce really beautifully in the early spring, early to late spring. Which we love that time of year for flowers, because after a slow winter, people are wanting that like bright color and beautiful flowers. So we'll do that again this year, planting those types of crops. And then next year we'll continue doing like sunflowers every couple weeks and zinnias and kind of easier like flowers. Just to have like more bounty and beautiful flowers on the farm, but also to like bring some bouquets to the market like we used to. And it used to be like kind of a stressful thing growing flowers, but I think with our methods this year, it'll be a little bit easier.
And we're building a new solar powered cold storage, so we'll have extra space, which was a huge issue, still is, because our cold storage, even though it's large, I think it gets filled up very quickly.
There's no room for flowers this year, so it's good we cut it out this year, because there's not even room for like half of a body of a human being in that cold storage before the farmer's market.
I think you need to tell us about your hats. That was a very good story, and I think Justin was enamored with it, to do that whole clip of just your hats.
So obviously we need to protect ourselves from the sun as much as possible, right? So every day on the farm, you can find us full of long sleeves, pants, the biggest sun hats we can find. And that's what helps us not fry out there when it's 109 degrees.
And it's kind of funny because some people, like Justin will come to the farm and he'll come to the farm at like 8 a.m. You know, it's pretty early. And we'll walk out of the farm so sweaty with our hats on and we're just like ready for the day. And I feel like he looks at us like, okay, guys, you know, it's only 8 a.m. Like, you got those hats on. But we just are so used to it now. And yeah, not only hats, but sunglasses. And we feel like we've definitely just like rubbed off on our employees of like the attire. Like in the summertime, we go to the river to like go hang out at the beach, and we're like we're going to get sunburned because anytime we're working, we're fully covered in clothing.
In UV protective clothing.
UV protective clothing, yeah.
It's just necessary for us.
And also my hat is my hat and not Dan's. That was a funny thing that I think Justin was laughing at, is we have our hats that fit our heads very specifically. And I wrote on my hat, Tori's hat, not Dan's, because it works for my head, not yours.
I wear that hat almost every day.
I know, he steals it.
And that's what I wanted you to talk about, because that was so funny.
That's why I put a feather on mine, so Dan can't steal my hat anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from anybody?
Oh, hey, this is Matt. I just wanted to know how the farm supervisors were doing. Are they still pulling their weight around there?
The supervisors are good. So actually just this morning, it was going to be very hot today. So the farm supervisors got to go home early with me while I did deliveries. I think Tori's about to give you a visual.
Yes.
So this is one of the farm supervisors?
Luna, right?
Yeah, this is Luna. She does her job very well. But yeah, I mean, they supervise us. They make sure we're all working very hard. They make sure we're all laughing.
They have found a few rattlesnakes, but luckily alerted us before they got in trouble themselves. And skunks. So.
Do you have any problem with gopher?
A lot of gophers on the farm. The dogs also help with that.
Yeah.
But Tori is the main gopher catcher on the farm.
So my question is, I've got two questions. One is, what is for both of you, each of you to answer separately, or you could answer together, it's up to you. What is your most favorite part of farming? And then as your mom, I want to know, are you living your best life?
I think my most favorite part of farming is honestly the The like ever changing routine. Like I used to feel like farming was such a crazy routine where we would always do the same thing every day, but it's so different. Like some days we line out our to-do lists and we're like, okay, everybody, we're going to do this. And then halfway through the day, Dan and I are like, actually, no, that's going to not work. And we're going to do this instead. It's totally different. Everybody is just on the same page and they're willing to shift their mentality and they're willing to shift like what they expect to do for the day.
Which is key to success.
It's key to success. And I can't tell you how many times all of us have expected to harvest a certain thing for like the CSA or the farmer's market. And Dan and I walk out and look at the field and we're like, actually, no, that's not going to work. We're going to harvest this instead. And being, I don't know, I feel like being a Virgo, that's like probably not supposed to be how I'm supposed to feel. Like I definitely like organized routine. And the farm has allowed me to like really love this constant change and making sure that I'm like always on my toes and always okay with letting things go.
I think it's
huge.
I think it's forced you.
It's forced me. It's totally forced me to let things go. And my sister, who's listening too, will laugh because I used to hate like letting crops go, like, or letting trays in the greenhouse that are like ready to be planted, but it's not the right time. I used to hate it so much. Now I'm the one that will go in there and be like, this has got to go. This has got to go. This has got to go. And I'll like turn things up over end because I know that it's just like, we need to move on. And like, what a good learning opportunity that has been for me to not just like perseverate and think about things and like keep thinking about things. You move forward. And that's been, for me personally, as like growing, that's been really good for me.
My favorite part of farming, aside from producing the beautiful vegetables that we do, is just working for ourselves. It's just super empowering to make our own decisions and control our own cash flow, and everything is reliant upon us, which can be extremely scary at sometimes, but also extremely rewarding. And everything is up to us. You know, we can't rely on anybody to help us when a crop doesn't work out or when a crop is super good. We're the only ones that benefit along with our farm crew. You know, it's all reliant upon us, and I think I get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
And also I would add, like, I think this year we've been really happy with like how the farm makes us feel, but in all the years leading up to this, including this year, we've been really like, the whole reason we've been farming is to like reach out to our community and like be a part of our community and feed the people that want to buy local produce. And I think that's the whole reason that we started farming in the first place. And it feels so good also knowing that like people who have been with us from the very, very beginning when we produced like one bundle of kale for the Pine Grove Farmers Market are still with us, you know, 4 years later, and we have a lot more to offer them. And it's been this really cool thing where we feel like they trust us now to like bring a bunch of veggies to the farmers market. And we're so appreciative of their support, of everyone's support. But
yeah, our beautiful community always lets us know how much they appreciate us, and that's really what keeps us going. You know, it's really hard this time of year. We get so exhausted and
super burnt out.
But then we go to the farmers market and everybody shows up, even though it's the hundreds, and they love our produce, and we love seeing their faces, and it's just great, and that's what keeps us going.
What was the second part of your question, Mom?
Are you living your best life?
Hell yeah, we are, and it's only getting better.
Yeah. And sometimes we question if it's our best life because of the amount of like burnout we get every once in a while. This year has been great, like we mentioned before. But yeah, I think even in like the most trying, like stressful months, we still feel like we wouldn't necessarily want to be doing anything else. We feel really good about what we're doing right now, and like moving forward, we have a lot to look forward to. And yeah, definitely living our best life.
Wouldn't change it for anything.
Totally.
I'm still blown away at the number of people that you see over the weekend at the farmers market. So
are we. Yeah, we don't get to drink much water.
Yeah, we don't drink much water.
Anyway, I think it's a good place to stop. And unless anybody else has more questions, I think we could go on and on and on. I think it's just fascinating and amazing what you learned in 4 years, and your operation is so professional and beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Here's to you. I don't have any wine left in my glass, but
Cheers, we got them.
yeah. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thanks all of you for joining us, and
Tori and Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Tori and Dan.
And I just want to say
Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you so much for putting this together. Thank you, Justin, for doing the wonderful pairing. And thanks to Tori and Dan.
Yeah.
Nice job, you guys.
Thanks for helping us not feel awkward in front of a computer screen. That's a
You didn't
I
get
don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. It's a lot of pressure.
Wine helps.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Wine helps. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.